There comes a moment in every life, usually quiet, usually unnoticed, when a man realizes the world he thought he was living in was only a flattering illusion, a soft lie whispered to keep him docile, predictable, harmless. And if you're watching this, it means you've already felt the first cracks forming in that illusion, the faint sense that people are not who they pretend to be, that relationships shift like shadows, that your value in the eyes of others fluctuates with their convenience. And in that fracture lies the birth of power, because life does not reward the innocent. It rewards the aware, the calculating, the ones who see through the facade without trembling. And if you don't learn this truth early, you learn it late, and late is always costly. You must understand something. The world is not built for the sensitive or the sentimental. It is built for the resilient, the strategic, the ones who study human nature the way a hunter studies tracks in the dirt. And you, if you wish to rise above the quiet suffocation of mediocrity, must begin seeing people as they are, not as you hope them to be. The man who hopes gets played, the man who observes gets paid. And every day you interact with others, you are either influencing or being influenced, shaping or being shaped, steering or being steered, and the tragedy is most people never realize which one they are. You were taught to be good, to be polite, to be agreeable, yet you were never taught the brutal mechanics of human desire, the silent hierarchies that form instantly in any room, the subtle negotiations every conversation carries, the invisible tug-of-war between ego and dependency, power and perception, loyalty and self-interest. And that ignorance has cost you opportunities, respect, money, relationships, perhaps even your own potential. But ignorance is a choice, and today you abandon it. You must grow into someone who understands that the world moves according to strength, not intention, and before you misunderstand me, strength isn't loud, it isn't aggressive, it isn't theatrical. Real strength is silent, strategic, emotionally regulated, unbothered, unshaken, a presence that makes people rethink their tone when they speak to you, and the path to becoming that presence begins with shedding the need to be liked. Understand this line clearly: the desire to be liked is the root of your exploitation. Machiavelli said, "He who seeks to be loved is already enslaved to those who grant it." And he was right, because when you crave approval, you become predictable, and the predictable become tools in the hands of those who understand them. If you want to gain power, don't aim to be liked, aim to be respected, and if respect is too expensive, aim to be understood at a distance. Influence flows more naturally to the man who is slightly out of reach. Your accessibility is killing your mystique, your openness is costing you leverage, your eagerness is diluting your value. Pull back. Compress your presence. Make your silence heavier than other people's noise. Draw a line between you and the world. A line that says, you may observe me but you do not own access to me. Because the more unpredictable you become, the more people adjust themselves around you, and this is the first law of quiet power. When your presence becomes rare, your value becomes amplified. But presence alone is not enough. You must also learn the psychology of standing alone, not as isolation but as independence. Not as rebellion but as strategy, because most people don't know how to exist without attaching themselves to someone stronger, and they hide this dependency behind friendliness, behind shared goals, behind emotional bonding. But you must be different. You must cultivate a spine made of your own decisions, not the borrowed expectations of others, because if people sense you need them, they will shape you. If they sense you can walk without them, they will follow your lead. Independence is intimidating. Independence is magnetic. Independence is the foundation of authority. And that authority grows when you develop the emotional discipline to navigate conflict without losing control, because the man who loses his temper reveals his weakness, the man who seeks validation reveals his insecurity, the man who explains himself unnecessarily reveals his uncertainty. You must become the opposite. Calm, focused, economical with your words. Let your silence ask the questions other people fear answering. Let your stillness expose their restlessness. Let your lack of reaction force them to measure their own. This is how you create psychological altitude, by refusing to descend into the emotional theatrics others live inside. Machiavelli wrote, A prince must learn to be both lion and fox, and though people love to quote the lion for its power, they forget the fox survives longer because it watches more than it speaks, thinks more than it acts, calculates more than it charges, and that mentality is what you must adopt if you want your life to shift. Your downfall has always been that you show too much, reveal too quickly, trust too easily, assume too generously. Your transparency has made you readable, and the readable are always the first to be used. Not anymore. The new version of you must be carved in secrecy. Your plans become private. Your progress becomes quiet. Your emotions become disciplined. Your expectations become minimal. Your reactions become deliberate. You become someone whose next move can't be predicted because it was never announced. The loud brag about their goals. The powerful execute in darkness and let the results reveal themselves like a dawn no one saw coming. But there is a deeper art to this transformation, an inner shift that separates the common man from the calculating man, and it lies in the ability to stay centered when others attempt to pull you off balance, because life is a constant negotiation of energy. Someone wants your attention, someone wants your fear, someone wants your agreement, someone wants your guilt, someone wants your compliance, someone wants your silence, and you must decide which of these you are willing to give and to whom, because power is not only what you project, it is what you withhold. You must practice withholding your emotions, your impulses, your vulnerabilities, your enthusiasm, your disappointment, because every piece of information you release becomes leverage in the hands of someone else. People can't manipulate what they don't understand. People can't predict what they can't read. People can't control what they can't reach. So become distant without becoming cold. Become mysterious without becoming hostile. Become discerning without becoming paranoid. Become selective without becoming bitter. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are repositioning yourself above it, watching patterns, calculating opportunities, identifying pressure points, recognizing archetypes. Because once you master the ability to read people, you no longer fear them. You see their insecurities disguised as confidence. You see their envy disguised as support. You see their cowardice disguised as morality. You see their self-interest disguised as loyalty. And once you see it, everything becomes negotiable, everything becomes manageable, everything becomes usable. Machiavelli warned, men are driven by necessity more than choice, and once you understand what someone needs, you understand how to influence them without force. This is the art of strategic empathy, not to connect emotionally, but to understand utility. You observe motivations, not words, patterns, not promises, outcomes, not intentions. And slowly you begin to reshape your social world in your favor. But transformation isn't just internal. It must reflect in your presence, your posture, your voice, your pace. Slow your movements. Lower your tone. Speak less. Listen more. Take up space without exaggeration. Move with intention, not speed. When you speak, let the silence before your words do half the work. When you look at someone, hold the gaze long enough to make them question their own composure. When you negotiate, don't rush to fill the pauses. Let the other person reveal their desperation. This is what gives your presence weight. This is what turns respect into instinct. This is what makes others feel a subtle pressure when you're in the room. You do not ask for authority. You emanate it. And now the question remains, why? Why change? Why harden? Why sharpen? Because the world does not reward softness, it consumes it. People admire kindness but follow strength. They praise humility but obey confidence. They claim to love honesty but exploit transparency. And you were not born to be consumed. You were born to shape your fate with precision, not hope, with strategy, not chance. Power is not a throne, it is a posture. Influence is not domination, it is direction. And your next evolution begins with a simple, irreversible decision. Stop being available for the version of life that keeps you small. Power begins with awareness, yes, but it becomes real only when you learn to bend the world without letting it bend you, to move through rooms as if every chair, every silence, every glance has already been accounted for, as if you've rehearsed the entire scene long before anyone else arrived. And this is where most people fail. They know the theory of strength, but they never embody the presence of it. They want influence but walk like shadows. They want respect but speak like beggars. They want freedom but choose comfort, and comfort is the silent assassin of every ambition. But you, if you've made it here, you're no longer interested in being comfortable, you're interested in being formidable, and that demands a recalibration of everything: how you think, how you react, how you negotiate, how you disappear, how you return, how you allow yourself to be seen, how you withhold yourself from being understood. Because a powerful man isn't powerful because he dominates others. He's powerful because he governs himself with the precision of a sovereign. And this is where your second transformation begins: the mastery of emotional detachment, not the cold detachment of someone who feels nothing, but the disciplined detachment of someone who refuses to let their emotions become someone else's leverage. Machiavelli said, "He who controls his emotions controls the actions of others," and this is not metaphor, it is human architecture. People are moved not by logic but by the anticipation of emotional outcomes, and if you are the person in any situation whose emotions remain still while others oscillate, you automatically rise above them, because the stable influence the unstable, the calm influence the chaotic, the centered influence the scattered, and the one who holds his composure holds the throne, no matter who sits on it physically. You must learn to be that man, the man who responds, not reacts, the man who interprets, not absorbs, the man who measures, not mirrors, the man who listens to the tone behind the words, the motive behind the gesture, the insecurity behind the aggression, the agenda behind the kindness. And once you begin to see these layers, the world shifts from being a battlefield to being a chessboard. Every conversation becomes strategy. Every conflict becomes information. Every insult becomes a mirror. Every emotional trigger becomes a map pointing to where your power leaks. And once you see where your power leaks, you seal it, and when you seal it, you become unshakable, and an unshakable man is dangerous. Not because he hurts others but because he cannot be hurt in the ways ordinary men can. But detachment alone is not enough. You must pair it with the ability to impose direction subtly, silently, invisibly, because overt force invites resistance, but invisible influence repositions reality without confrontation. People believe choices are theirs until you learn how to guide their desires, shape their fears, and steer their priorities without ever announcing your intention. This is the true art of Machiavellian influence, not manipulation but design. You observe what someone wants, and you frame your presence in a way that makes aligning with you feel like their own idea. You do not push, you redirect. You do not demand, you position. You do not argue, you reframe. You do not expose your aim, you disguise it behind theirs. And when done correctly, people move in the direction you want, believing it was their initiative, and this is the elegance of soft power. It leaves no fingerprints, no friction, no trace. The fox moves the lion without roaring once. But to wield this influence, you must first become a man whose presence feels intentional, a man whose energy doesn't leak, whose words carry weight not because of volume but because of scarcity, whose boundaries are firm without being announced, whose silence provokes thought in others, whose time feels earned, not given. You must learn to let people wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you truly want, because curiosity is leverage and mystery is authority. The more others try to interpret you, the more of their energy you control. The less predictable you become, the more predictable they become around you. This is why you must kill your availability, reduce your digital noise, limit your emotional broadcasting. You must become someone whose absence creates tension, whose presence creates gravity, whose unpredictability creates respect. And now we must speak of distance, the distance that power requires. Not isolation, not withdrawal, but strategic distance, psychological distance, social distance, the kind that places you slightly above the chaos rather than inside of it. Too close and people lose respect. Too far and people lose fear. You must exist at that precise middle point where you are accessible but never fully approachable, understood but never fully decipherable, present but never entirely available. This distance is not cruelty, it is structure. It allows you to observe patterns without being trapped in them, to engage without being entangled, to care without being consumed. A king cannot walk freely among the crowd without losing the illusion that makes the crown possible. You too must guard the image you project. You cannot be everywhere, cannot respond instantly, cannot explain yourself often, cannot justify your intentions, cannot react impulsively. Your life must feel curated, not chaotic. Your presence must feel deliberate, not accidental. Your voice must feel decisive, not desperate. And you must learn the art of selective interaction. Not everyone deserves proximity, not everyone deserves insight, not everyone deserves your kindness, not everyone deserves your time. The powerful choose their circle with the same caution a general chooses his advisors, not out of distrust but out of clarity. But while you distance yourself from the world, you must simultaneously strengthen the world within you. Your inner fortress, your discipline, your focus, your solitude, your mental sovereignty, must be unbreachable. What you consume, what you practice, what you build, what you tolerate, what you pursue, these things shape the quality of your mind, and the quality of your mind shapes the quality of your life. You must create internal standards so high they become a filter that automatically repels the mediocre, the chaotic, the jealous, the insecure, the inconsistent. A strong internal world manifests as an unmistakable external aura. And once this aura is established, something fascinating happens. People begin treating you according to the identity you project, not the identity you once had. You become synonymous with authority, with calm, with control, with mystery, with ambition, with a level of self-respect so sharp it cuts the tongues of those who try to diminish you. And this identity, once solidified, becomes a weapon, because men who know who they are cannot be broken by those who don't. Now we come to the final step, your ascent. Not the loud ascent of someone who boasts, not the insecure ascent of someone who competes, but the silent ascent of someone who creates inevitability. You don't announce your goals, you move toward them until the world adjusts to your trajectory. You don't tell people your dreams, you build in silence until they become landscapes others must navigate. You don't seek validation, you seek leverage. You don't chase opportunities, you position yourself like a lighthouse, immovable, magnetic, impossible to ignore. And this ascent will feel lonely because the higher you go, the fewer people can breathe the air with you. But this loneliness is not a curse. It is proof you are no longer living at the level where most men settle. You are stepping into the realm where kings are forged, not through destiny but through discipline, not through privilege but through relentless self-mastery. And now I'll leave you with this. You are not evolving into a better version of yourself. You are evolving into a version others can no longer exploit. And once you become that version, the world will not understand you. It will react to you. It will adjust to you. It will orbit around you. Stay close, because the next lesson won't teach you how to survive.